I'd like to welcome you to the Summit and Energy Expo, our final day. We've had some great speakers. Yesterday was good panels, good speakers, and we promise more of the same today. We're so glad that you chose to attend. We feel like that this topic on energy has been very well used by our panels and speakers, and we still have more to come. We would like for you to, you've got a piece of paper there in your chair. Fill that out to help us as we go forward in the future. Things that pluses and minuses that we might let this thing keep growing. This is the 11th year, and Drew and Senator Duncan have been involved for a long time. This year it's been mainly Drew and his great staff. I told him that I was going to crown Cheryl Cordova Queen of the Summit, and then she's got a court over here from the chamber of great ladies, people that have really worked hard. Drew, thanks for getting us good people, and thank you ladies for the follow-up and the work you've done. I feel like it. There's several of you are county commissioners, and of course you can get credit. You do need to fill out your paperwork and try to remember to turn that in before you leave for CEU credit. We're so thankful for our sponsors. Without sponsors, you'd hardly be able to have any kind of an event, and we have had some great ones. I'm going to list some, and then I'm going to move on because we want to hear the Chancellor. Many thanks to Devon Energy, to AEP Texas, Case Toll Solutions, Foster Communications, Jackson Walker Attorneys, Reese Albert, and AEP Texas, well, I've got them. Aqua Services, AT&T, KIDY, San Angelo Realtors, thank you. Shannon Medical Center, the Standard Times did a great job, and this slick magazine that they put together was great, and we appreciate that so much. Many of you bought ads in there, and we appreciate them doing that. Sunlink Communications and Texas Midwest Community Network are some of our sponsors. We appreciate it so much. And with that, I'm going to ask Representative John Rainey from Bryan College Station to come up. Since he is right down there in the middle of Aggie land, he seems to be the appropriate man to introduce the Chancellor. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The Chancellor is a good friend. We are happy to have him in Bryan College Station. I know that most of you know who he is. He's been involved in politics, I guess, all his life. He was president of the student body at A&M, so he just kept going. And I accused him of being a Republican one time, and he told me, no, he wasn't a Republican, but he was in charge of the camp's Democrats for Nixon. So without any further ado, I want to invite Chancellor Sharp up here to visit with you, and we're proud to have him, and I know that each of you will be impressed with his intellect. Come on up here.
Thank you, John. I asked John what he wanted me to talk about. He said, my personal preference is you talk about 2 minutes. So I understand that. Thank you for giving me a chance to be here, Drew. Thanks for the invite. I was talking to Drew and asked him how many grandkids he and Clarissa have, and he said he has 3, but that's just the beginning. And I was telling him my wife is so disappointed that neither one of our 2 kids are married, doesn't have grandchildren. She's a good Christian woman, but she's about to the point saying, forget the marriage, just get us some grandkids. Sure, nobody puts that in paper. I have to tell you, though, one of my very favorite stories, I was telling Jason and some folks this on the way up here is when, in the mid-90s, when I was running the Texas lottery, I had a guy, I thought he was from Wall, but anyway, he's from Concho Valley, somewhere around here. And he won $10 million, and of course, you know, being a young budding politician back then, so, yeah, I knew something about how to get press. And you stand next to those guys, and you're gonna have 50 TV cameras and the whole bit. So boy, I sidled up next to this old boy, and he walked in, and he had some, he was a rancher, had, not a rancher, but he worked on a ranch, had some brown stuff on his shoes, you know, what boots, you know what that was. And he didn't dress up too good, but I thought, I'm gonna get me some ink on this deal. And so they asked him the first question. They asked all lottery winners, what are you going to do with this $10 million? And the guy said, well, I'm going to spend some of it on whiskey, and I'm going to spend some of it on women, and then I'm just going to waste the rest of it. Sure hope my wife doesn't see this deal. But it's good to be here, Drew. Thanks for the invite, and I really appreciate the chance to come here and talk to y'all. Brian May is a kindred soul of mine, and I know that he's doing a great job at this university here. He and I have been friends for a very long time, and I know he's going to be a great, and is already a great university president. One of the things that happens is we all get together, you know, all the chancellors and the presidents get together, and lately they've been just going, oh my God, it's going to be just a horrible legislative session. The legislature is getting so conservative and all this kind of stuff. And I want you to know from Aggie point of view, we welcome that. We hope that you appropriate money based on the schools that are the most efficient. One of the things that's happening in this country right now, if you look back over the last 10 years, at universities around the country, you see administrative costs have gone up about 138%, and faculty costs have gone up about 28%. I'm pretty sure that the reason that universities were put on this earth by God or whoever was not to hire administrators. It was probably to put faculty in the classroom and do research and things like that. And we're pretty proud of the fact at Texas A&M that we have shed nearly 3,000 positions administratively. We came to the conclusion that the primary core function of Texas A&M University and all of its system schools was not to cook food, not to mow the grass, not to fix buildings, and all of those kinds of things. And we turned all of that over to a private company who paid us $260 million over the next 10 years for the privilege of them doing the work for us. We thought that was a pretty good deal. And we've just gone through an administrative review, and at the College Station campus alone, over the next 18 to 24 months, we will shed another 850 administrative positions through attrition. And so we hope the next session of the legislature, when they look at TRBs or they look at things, they say, I think you've got to be this efficient before you ever get any money, and then we'll get it all. So we don't fear that. I want to talk to you a little bit about engineering, if we could. Every single president that has ever been in our lifetime in the United States has been bemoaning the fact that we don't produce enough engineers, whether it's petroleum engineers, which we have a heck of a shortage of now. As a matter of fact, the Texas Workforce Commission has said we're going to need 52,000 engineers by the year 2020 just in the state of Texas. But in all of the major top 10 universities that produce engineers that are top 10, which of course A&M is one of those nationally, they're all about 10,000 students, maybe 11,000 at the most. And you ask them, so why are you only 10,000? Our dean of engineering, Kathy Banks, looked at that and said, why are we only 10 or 11,000? Well, the reason is because U.S. News and World Report and all those folks that rank you and everything judge you on how many you turn down, how exclusive you are, and all this kind of stuff, which of course has nothing to do with reality. And she looked at it and she said, look, we get about 10,000 applicants in our engineering school every year. A whole bunch of those for petroleum engineering. We accept about 1,500 of those. But there's another 1,500 that you can't tell the difference between them and the first 1,500. And so she goes, why can't we educate those kids as well? And so she pronounces last year that we're, instead of having 10,000 engineering students, by the year 2025, at the flagship in College Station, we're going to have 25,000 engineering students. We're going to better than double our engineering students by that period of time, because that's what Texas needs. It may not suit U.S. News and World Report, but it is what Texas needs. And for those universities that then came to her around the nation and said, oh my God, your test scores are going to go down, you're not exclusive anymore, we accepted this next year for the freshman class an additional about 1,600 engineers, and their LSA, their SAT scores went up 42 points. There are plenty of smart young men and women. One of the things that happens in Texas is, for some reason, young women choose not to go into engineering, and I think that's because they think maybe it's road building or it's building buildings. That ain't what engineering is about anymore. It's about building hearts, it's about biomedical engineering and all kinds of things like that. And so we're going into elementary schools right now, our professors, and we're buying 3D printers and putting in elementary school, trying to get those young minds to start thinking about that. Because like it or not, engineers are what produces innovation in the state of Texas and produces economic outlook. Although there are only two types of engineers. There are introverted engineers and extroverted engineers. And extroverted engineers, when they're talking to you, look at your shoes, and that's the only difference. but particularly in petroleum engineering, we can't produce enough petroleum engineers. We're quite happy with some of our folks that were involved in fracking, for instance. George Mitchell, who pioneered that, along with a whole bunch of help from people in the Petroleum Institute and places like within the Texas A&M and the Texas A&M system. But he's my hero. I want you to know about George Mitchell. George Mitchell, who passed away last year, I would say is about as close to the father of fracking as you can get, with the Barnett Shale up in Fort Worth. And so George had all of this technology. And I went to him one time and I said, Mr. Mitchell, why did you send that to the rest of the world for free? He said, you had $1 billion worth of technology here that was yours, or a whole bunch of it yours. And he said, well, I thought about that, but I already had $1 billion and didn't need another one. And he sat there and he loaded all of that fracking information onto a computer, aimed it at the World Wide Web, sat there and looked at the computer for 4 hours one night, and then finally, right before he went to bed, hit send. And that's why all of a sudden that technology is in Romania and Russia and all over the place like that. And so he is really the epitome of what unselfishness in public services is all about, and we're awful proud of him. Well, one of the things that we're going to do in the oil industry in particular is we're going to produce the engineers and the number of engineers that they want. If none of the other universities want to do it, then by God, we're going to do it, because the reason you pay your money is to make sure that we do what the people of Texas want to do, and we're going to do that with our engineering program. One of the things that you might be interested in, it just came out not too long ago, I expect the folks in Devon know about it and others, but there's a gas separation membrane that was just invented at A&M, and we're getting that into the oil patch as soon as possible, and that's going to do wonders for sour gas and allow a whole bunch of different questionable products that we're selling for a cheaper price to be upgraded into, and it's going to make a whole bunch of money for the oil and gas industry before all this is over with. Another thing I want to talk about briefly has to do with biggest driver, as Drew will tell you, in the state budget is Medicaid. I mean, it keeps going on the same course it's going right now. It's bound to break somebody before it's over with. We think Obamacare doesn't come close to addressing how you knock those expenditures down. If you look at the Medicaid cost, most of it's preventable diseases. It's either infectious diseases or diabetes. But there is nothing in Obamacare, nothing that the federal government does, that we think, that we see, that addresses the cost of how you keep from these people having to go on Medicaid or going in the hospital in the first place. And so a year or so ago, in Corpus Christi, we started a little project very quietly, and we started using our health science center and our extension service to get to people and say, look, if your family is prone to diabetes, you need to quit doing this, 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 and you need to start doing this, this, and this. And talking to people about infectious diseases, and it occurred to us that we can probably do the same thing with these diseases that we do for cattle. And let me sort of explain this. The extension is in every single county, including this one, in the state of Texas, except two. We have offices in 250 of the 254 counties. Only the 4 counties that have more cows than people we don't have offices in. But what those extension agents do, and what your county extension agent does here, is he takes the research that happens in AgriLife research that teaches you how to grow better cattle, how to grow better goats, how to grow better sheep, how to grow better sugar cane, and all of these kinds of things, healthier livestock, healthier plants, and increase your production, takes that research and takes it directly to the farmers and ranchers. But they don't have to go to Monsanto to get that information. They get it by going to meetings of the Extension Service. And it occurred to us that since we already are a land-grant institution, we already have these 250 counties out there, why can't we use the same assets there to take the research that goes on at our facilities and at Houston Medical Center and our Health Science Center on infectious diseases and diabetes and things like that, and take that directly to the families. So in other words, you may have in one county, one evening, 600 farmers and ranchers meeting with an extension agent who's teaching them how to grow better livestock. And at the same time, in the same county, you may have 600 mamas being taught how to take care of their babies and how to grow better babies and transfer all that to them. So we did a little experiment in Corpus and came to the conclusion, it was so successful that we came to the conclusion that we believe that if we took the #1 problem area, which is South Texas basically, and we started with that and used that to prove to the legislature that it would work, we believe that in less than a 10-year period of time, we can produce a 20 to 25% reduction in diabetes alone. That's a $3 billion savings off of Medicaid's bottom line, or top line once we get into it. And if we do what we think is going to happen in that program, using the extension service and using those assets that are already there, we think we can do that through the rest of the state and be the place in the state that teaches the rest of the United States, here's how you ought to take care of health care. It ain't about just paying when somebody walks in the hospital, it's keeping them from going in there in the first place. From things that are preventable and stuff like that. So we call that the Healthy Texas Initiative, and that'll be something that we're bringing forward pretty soon. Some of our now here's something you probably won't clap at. We just bought a law school. Been something A&M wanted to do, and I'll be the first to tell you, when I first started looking at buying Texas Western Law School, or merging with Texas Western Law School, most Aggies came to me and he said, why don't you just buy them all and then shut them all down? It's pretty much the attitude of Aggies. But by the way, in case you didn't see it, the Princeton Review did an analysis of the politics on campuses. The #1 conservative campus in the United States of America, John Rainey, is Texas A&M College Station. You want to send your children there to come out liberals, you've got the wrong place. But anyway, so we buy this law school. And I want you to know this about this law school. We are not going to produce lawyers for the sake of going out and suing somebody. What we are going to do is fill a vacuum that we think occurs in the state of Texas and in this country about producing lawyers that the industry needs. We're going to produce water lawyers. We're going to produce patent lawyers. We're going to produce oil and gas lawyers. We're going to produce natural resource lawyers. The things that are in short supply. Go try to find a patent lawyer in Concho County, or for that matter in Dallas County. They are hard to find. And what we're going to do, we think those IP lawyers and those patent lawyers and folks like that are exactly what business needs, and those are the kind of attorneys that we're going to produce. And you'll see that law school, which is mediocre when we bought it, but you'll see that law school rise as fast in rankings as any law school has ever done in the state of Texas. And it's going to be a bunch of lawyers that this state is going to be proud of. Most of them probably will never go into a courtroom, but they'll be darn good lawyers for the business community and for that need in the state of Texas. Over in Tarleton, we have an interesting program. A lot of people don't know that our campus in Tarleton, we do the crop insurance, the fraud detection for crop insurance. Anybody that tries to defraud the federal government with crop insurance, we do that. And we use a neural net computer, which is a computer that thinks. It learns how to think like a crook. It's the same kind of computer that American Express uses. If you want to see how the computer works, go to a gas station here in San Angelo and buy yourself 50 cents worth of gas, and then go to JCPenney. When you get to JCPenney, that card will be rejected. And the reason it will be rejected is because the #1 mode of fraud for credit card fraud is you go to a gas station, see if it works, and if it does, then you go on a shopping spree. And that same neural net computer, one of the best in the country, is located at Tarleton University. We are refocusing that computer onto Medicaid fraud in the state and teaching it as we speak how to think like a Medicaid crook, so that we can then advise the Department of Human Services in the state about how Medicaid crooks work and alert them when we think some doctor, some hospital, or whatever, whether it's here or Rio Grande Valley or any place else, is defrauding that particular system. We also produce more STEM teachers, and this has to do with engineering, than any place in the state of Texas. We produce 40% of all of the STEM teachers, math and science teachers that exist in high schools in the state of Texas, and we double down and refocusing on that because we think that is extremely important, and couple that with our engineering. Quite frankly, our engineering dean is now talking to high schools about using A&M professors in those high schools occasionally and helping teach kids and stimulating minds, and particularly of young girls into the engineering field and things like that. At Texas A&M Central Texas, we will have the largest solar display that exists anywhere in the country. Won't be in California or Arizona anymore. The research for most of the solar will wind up in Killeen, Texas. Before it's over with, Fort Hood, I predict, will be completely off the grid and will be operated basically by the solar factories that are being put in that particular place, all being paid by somebody else. At Texas A&M Corpus Christi, we're solving a problem that the FAA has. The FAA has a little problem with drones. Crashing into 737s are not a good deal, and they're having to completely redo all of the flight rules about how commercial planes fly in conjunction with drones flying all over the place. Whether it's a drone being used by a pipeline to photograph pipeline right-of-ways, or whether it's a drone being used to count the deer herds on the King Ranch. By the way, we have a drone in Corpus we use for that purpose. McLaughlin, if you want us to count your cows, we can tell you how many ticks are on those cows. but instead of using helicopters and things like that, we can fly a drone over the King Ranch in about an afternoon and a half, and not only count every cow, we can count your deer, we can count your literally the insects on the deer, and if you folks sit down real good, you can count your quail crop and everything. And so it's those are the kinds of things that are just a glimpse of what the future is. What A&M and A&M Corpus Christi are charged with the FAA, we were chosen from all of the universities in the country that applied for this, is writing those new rules and regulations for the Federal Aviation Administration that will be in place to make it safe in the skies for drones and for other things. But with all of these things, I will tell you that the thing we are most proud of at A&M is our students. Our football team is fine. We're proud to be the #1 research university, not just in the state of Texas, but in the southwestern United States. And our rankings are climbing, and all that's good. But if you want to feel good about the future, step on the A&M campus and talk to those kids. Act like you're lost and open up a map and see how many dozen kids come up to you and say, "Sir, ma'am, can we help you?" Then go try that somewhere else, see how it works out for you. They were my favorite email my entire time I was chancellor. Is I get a little email from this lady in Florida 2 days after the Florida game. She says, "My name is Rosie, I forget what. I'm 87 years old. I came to Texas A&M game with my Gator hat on and my orange and blue and all this kind of stuff, and I'm on a walker waiting in line to get into the football game. 4 students pick me and my walker up, run me through the line, take me and set me in the stadium, and after the game was over with, came and picked me up, threw me over their shoulders, and took me back to bus. What the hell kind of students you got?" She said, "I have never," she said, "as old as I am, I used to get harassed and spit on because my hat and everything, and these are just the nicest kids in the world. What is in the water in Bryan College Station?" But that's the way those kids are. And it's one of the reasons that they start with the Texas A&M graduates, start with the second highest salaries of any students in the United States of America. Only the University of Pennsylvania students have an average higher starting salary than Texas A&M College Station. And it's not just because of their education. It is because of the other education. It's because they were in the Corps and learned leadership. It was because they were in a bunch of different organizations. It's because something happens when they get to that campus that binds them together and makes them cognizant of selfless service. And the folks that went before them that fought in every single war that the United States has ever been involved in, back to the Spanish-American War, they're a special group of kids. And they also happen to be, according to Forbes magazine, the 3rd highest recruited kids of any campus in the United States. They are very special. But what we are about is solving problems that guys like Drew identify for us. And by the way, if there is a better state representative than the ones you have here, I don't know about it. Drew is one of the most respected, and he knows this, and John knows it, one of the most respected members of the legislature, Senate or House involved, and you have a great history here of producing great legislators. You know, except for Janelle, and y'all send him out to play polo. It's good to be here. I want to talk about one last thing that has to do with solving problems. Problems like Ebola and stuff like that. If you remember, President Bush, before he left office, said there is going to be a pandemic, and he was worried about bird flu at the time. And he would have been right, except that the right duck and the right pig didn't get together in the right way and produce a pandemic. But it is going to happen. Every scientist on the planet will tell you that sooner or later we're going to have a replay of what happened in 1914 when 25 million people were killed by the Spanish flu. That is going to happen again, but this time it's going to be 80 to 100 million people killed by a pandemic. And President Bush knew, and President Obama knew, that there is no response in this country or anywhere in the world to producing fast enough, analyzing, producing vaccines, and getting vaccines out to the people. And so President Obama followed up on what Bush was talking about, and he put out an RFP and said, okay, we want all of the universities, all the pharmaceutical companies to come forward and tell us how they plan to do it. Well, Aggie engineers solve two problems. One of the problems is it's very expensive to develop the vaccines because you have to have a clean room. Clean rooms cost $1 billion. Just ask TI, who has 4 of them in Dallas, Motorola, all of those things cost $1 billion a piece. Aggie engineers took double wide trailers and sealed them off and made it to where you could do the same thing in a clean room in a double wide trailer. We're manufacturing 22 of them. Instead of $1 billion a piece, they cost $750,000 a piece. And so we teamed with MD Anderson and we put those things in there. And so the second thing that was a problem is you had to wait too long on chicken eggs in order to see if the vaccine worked. Our agriculture folks found a tobacco in South Africa that did the same thing chicken eggs did, where you could put it in a vacuum, suck the protein out, and use that and get your answer in 2 days. And so once we got those two things in place and we built the National Center for Therapeutic Medicine, all of a sudden we were the place that was chosen of all of them in the country to be the place, the only place where a pharmaceutical company works for us, and it's GlaxoSmithKline, to do that. And so our charge is that when a pandemic happens, and we're close to being called on Ebola, there are calls being made. If this gets too serious, we need to start looking at that. But when a pandemic happens, our charge will be to produce a vaccine, to produce 300 million doses in a matter of months, not in a matter of years. And we're going to do that. Then we're going to vaccinate, you know, Aggies and our major contributors, and Drew, and some of y'all that got your mind right. The lost dog probably won't get any. but anyway, we believe that Aggies were put on this earth to save the world, and by God, we're fixing to do it in this pandemic. But those are the things that land-grant universities are about. Solving problems that face this country, whether it's in the oil and gas industry, whether it has to do with diseases, or whether it has to do with animals and things like that. And I'll tell you another thing that will never happen. A lot of schools, when they get real uppity and they start getting up in the rankings and stuff like that, they forget about education. They say, oh, teachers are beneath us. We're not going to do anymore. So that's why you don't have it at Harvard and you don't have it at Yale and a bunch of places like that. That will never happen at Texas A&M. We will always be very proud of the fact that we can produce teachers that are great people that this state needs, because we understand that unless those teachers are there, we're not going to get the kids to come to our colleges and universities. And so I appreciate the chance to be here and talk a little bit about Texas A&M and some of the things we're doing for the various industries in the state of Texas. And we look forward to working with these legislators and each of you through our county agents and folks like that. And so I'm not here to tell you that we want some of your kids and grandkids to go to Texas A&M. I'm here to tell you we want all of your kids and grandkids. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. We in West Texas, in spite of Mark McLaughlin and Drew Darby, do appreciate Texas A&M and all of that. we have a few T-SIPs, but we have a big agriculture area too. Thank you very much, and thank you for what the university does. We've got just a little bit of time, and with the amount of information that the Chancellor gave us, would there be some questions? We've got time enough to have a few questions. We got one here. Would you mind to field a few?
No, I won't.
I shouldn't have said that.
Mark,
talking about vaccines, and that's wonderful news. I'm delighted. There are stringent requirements on testing, first on animals, vaccines I'm talking about, before they're even done on human experiments, before they're released. Have you done anything about compressing that time?
Well, one of the things that's happened is, his question was, have you done anything about compressing the time for vaccines? Number one, we assume that once you get into a pandemic, there are going to be a lot of liberties taken with time periods and things like that. I mean, if all of a sudden you're going to have 80 to 100 million people die, you're going to be experimenting pretty freely with trying to save lives. But the second thing is that all of our partner in all of this that we chose is GlaxoSmithKline. GlaxoSmithKline has moved its entire vaccine operation from Europe, or they're in the process now of moving all of their vaccine operation from Brussels to Bryan College Station right now. And so all of those vaccine people will be there with us. In addition to that, we have a company that's mostly owned by the Texas A&M system. We don't really want to own it. We're quite frankly fixing to sell it to Fujifilm because that's we needed it to get started, but we just as soon have a private partner operate it. But those folks are going to be in the system. But I think probably the correct answer to your question is, if you get to the point where you have something that starts replicating the 1914 Spanish flu, there's going to be a lot of liberties taken with the Food and Drug Administration in terms of getting things in the field, because the consequences of maybe not having the correct vaccine is going to be far less than what's going to happen if you don't do anything at all. We are told that much of that is going to be suspended if you ever get into that kind of situation. Why are you interested in it? You ain't going to get no vaccine.
Well, I know a place in Austin where I can get
your
some.
daughter, Laurie might get a vaccine, but I don't know about you. Yes, sir.
Chancellor, thank you for your leadership and explanation of all the great things that are going on at the university, but can you tell us who's going to be the starting quarterback?
Is there any press here? Oh, there is? Oh, okay. No, I can't. It's going to be, I can give you the two choices. But they're, you know, I mean, they're both great quarterbacks. Kyle Allen from, and I go to practice when I have a chance to, you know, to advise the kids on. But a kid from Scottsdale is pretty special. He is. But I'll tell you the one to watch. The one to watch, if we produce another Heisman winner in the next 4 years, his name is going to be Speedy Knowles. He's from New Orleans. And watch that name. He weighs about 185 pounds, maybe soaking wet. But you ain't never seen anything faster than this unless you've seen a bullet. I have never seen, it's just amazing how fast this kid can run. And he'll be returning kicks, he'll be returning punts, he'll be playing a slot receiver. He thinks he can be left tackle. I mean, he is, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And the first game is South Carolina. South Carolina's going to be ranked number 6 in the nation, so we obviously won't be picked to win that game. But Summerlin's pretty good. We hope for a good season this year, but when that new set of recruits comes in 2015, it's going to be pretty awesome. And I'll tell you why the recruiting's so good. Did you ask that question? I thought you asked. Other than the fact that Summerlin is a great recruiter, but there's something else that has dawned on me, and John and I have talked about this a bunch of times. What happens is these really fast kids know that the SEC is your ticket to the pros. It's the fastest ticket to the pros because you're on TV every weekend. And they want to play for the SEC. Mama, however, wants them home on Sunday. And you can't do that from Alabama, and you can't do that from Mississippi, and you can't do that from Georgia and Missouri and places like that. And so I get preachers that tell me all the time, said, you Aggies have solved the age-old argument among families with great athletes, and that is mama wants the kids home on Sunday, and they want to play for the SEC, and the only place you can do that is in College Station, Texas. And so I think that's a big role in what that recruiting is about. But it's going to be.
Thank you. There's a whole lot of other people in here who probably doesn't care about the least bit what you're saying, but there's some of us that do.
And Mark, y'all doing good in recruiting too. I saw the other day where y'all had somebody.
Well, I still remember the last game that Texas and A&M.
And that was planned that way? Because had you not done us that favor, we wouldn't have Sumlin as a coach. We'd still have that other guy. So we knew exactly what we were doing. And y'all just fell into the trap. If we still had Sherman, we wouldn't have this great coach that we have right now. So we appreciate that.
That's
And
another
you're going to need to
example of
remember that
reverse
long
engineering.
term. Somebody asked me the other day, said, y'all going to sell beer in your stadium like Texas does? And I said, we do not need alcohol to forget our sports program.
So for a follow-up on that, will Texas and A&M get to play again?
I hope so. I hope one day that'll happen. I know that Coach Strong has said that. I went to both Cigaroa and Powers, after it was over with, and asked, when I was first chancellor, because my board asked me to, said, hey, y'all want to play some football? And they said no. I mean, that's exactly what Bill said. He said, no, I can't because, the Lost don't want to do it. And I'm going, I've been running this place, but anyway. But I think maybe now that that's changed and stuff like that, hopefully sometime in the future that we'll do it. Y'all probably need to get your game up a little bit before you do that. I'm doing this, of course, for Mark. No,
we got a new fellow though. His name is McRaven. You might have heard of him.
McRaven? Yeah.
Yeah. You need to talk to him about some of the stuff you're putting
I
out.
talked to him the other day. I told him, I said, you went to the wrong school. You look like an Aggie. Your whole career has been an Aggie. And he said,
He's better
he said
looking.
he took that as he said he took that as a high compliment. Any other questions?
How do you follow that up?
No.
And the stadium, Dr. Darby and Dr. Rainey, is not paid for by any state expenditure. It is all donations and ticket sales and all this kind of stuff. But it is going to be spectacular. It's really going to be something.
The fact that Hirschfeld Steel of San Angelo is doing the steel work on that stadium,
Yeah.
unheard of thing.
It should be. It's all Texas companies. What I'm told is it's all Texas companies. There are brick folks in Corsicana, folks here, steel folks here, and stuff like that. The whole $450 million is being spent in the state. And they're doing a great job. It's on time. And I was down there in the stadium the other night and they put down the grass, and it's God, it looks big. It's really intimidating, stuff like that. Of course, we've lowered the field, Mark, 7 feet on account of, we had a sound person come in and say, if you lower the field 7 feet, you can better direct the sound down into the field for the opponents. And I don't know if I said it, but we will be the largest stadium in the state of Texas.
For now.
For now. We've got room to expand. Any other questions? Anything? Thank you very much.